The New Zealand Herald reports on a new campaign which is aiming to break down some of the stigma around the herpes virus. Some well-known Kiwis have teamed up to front the campaign to mark Global Herpes Awareness Day.
You can count on New Zealand to make it funny too.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking a little more about that campaign with our next guest. First though, here's a quick look at the ad that they've released today.
Now, I bloody hate viruses. But today I'll be talking about a largely medically insignificant one, herpes. This is the herpes simplex virus. Outside Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, the virus is usually found in only two locations, on your face or on your bits.
Well, Alaina Luxmoore is a spokesperson for the New Zealand Herpes Foundation. She joins us this morning from Auckland. Thank you so much for joining us, Alaina. Now, why is there a need for a campaign like this?
Kia ora, thanks for having me. There's a need for a campaign like this because despite being a medically insignificant virus, there's still really harmful stigma, and people struggle alone in isolation, thinking that their lives are over sometimes, and it's just unnecessary. We can break the stigma.
Especially because it's actually extremely common, herpes.
It is really common. There are two viruses within herpes, HSV1 and 2. Statistics show that about 80% of the population will have HSV1 over their lifetime. And HSV2 was always thought to be the genital herpes variety, but actually I think more than 50% of genital herpes cases are now caused by HSV1. So cold sores, genital herpes, it's actually all the same thing.
But it can actually remain dormant for years. How do you know that you have it?
Maybe it's unfair, but a lot of people don't and maybe never will. Around 80% of people with the herpes virus will never get symptoms, so they might pass it on unknowingly, and you can't get an accurate diagnostic test to know you have it unless you have an active sore. So it's just the proportion of people that get sores that kind of have to suffer with this. But if we all assume we have it or can carry it or know someone that has it, there's no reason for people to have such a hurtful stigma around it.
Does it or should it impact your relationship?
It does, 100%. I mean, we at the Herpes Foundation in New Zealand take a lot of counselling calls, people really struggling with their mental health, their sense of well-being, their sense of confidence. But it's so manageable. It is a virus you have for life, but it's so manageable. And if people are open and honest about it and willing to see that it isn't something that makes people dirty or less than, it's just a part of being human, catching a virus.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the campaign. You've taken a very funny, humorous approach to the campaign, and you've got some pretty big names actually as well. I was looking at one of the videos and it features world champion boxer Miyamoto, who talks about some of the myths around herpes. What are some of the myths that exist?
One of the biggest myths is that you catch it through being dirty. That's a really antiquated way to look at any sexually transmitted infection. Other myths would be that it's really harmful to your health or a risk to life. I mean, it is a skin condition at the end of the day. Myths that if you find out you have it when you're in a relationship, it actually means that somebody has been unfaithful. That's not true because it can lay dormant for so long. So these are some of the myths, and we're so lucky and grateful that these really big personalities were willing to see through the stigma and put their name and effort to the campaign.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you get them all on board? Because of the stigma that does exist, I can imagine some of them might have needed some convincing.
You're so right. I mean, the foundation has been around for 20 plus years, and this is probably the first time we've been able to make a campaign like this because it really is the impossible brief to destigmatise herpes. The best campaign in the world needs one of the best creative agencies in the world. So our partners, Motion Sickness, who are the brains behind the clever campaign, did a lot of the legwork for pulling in these big names for us.
So the mission is to make New Zealand the most herpes-friendly country in the world. How are you going to do that?
So in order to be the best place in the world, it means that we have the most up-to-date understanding and respectful health community supporting a population who understands it and sees it for what it is, that there's no stigma. But, you know, it wouldn't be competition without some friendly rivalry. So we definitely want to see other countries try and improve their stigma ratings as well.
All right, well, Alaina Luxmoore, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning from
Thanks for
the
having
New
me.
Zealand Herpes Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you.